All right, welcome to the Underhand Free Throw. We're doing something a little different. We're gonna go through a mock draft, a semi first round mock draft. We're at least gonna do the lottery, maybe talk about a couple prospects we like. I figured this is the right time of year because we just wrapped up with the combine. So at the moment, at least us as fans, we have like the most information we're going to have about these prospects. And from now on out, the trend is often like guys will rise and fall for reasons that aren't totally understandable on mock drafts, and it's just kind of based on like how trends are going. But I've actually found, at least in my experience, and I think you've said this before too, Ian, that once you have all the info, once you've done all the scouting, like that's actually your gut instinct on where the players are at is often the best place. Like that's often, you know, if you continue to think and deliberate, you'll fixate on small flaws or strengths in these players that don't actually matter all that much, and you'll end up misevaluating them. So I
It's
feel
funny
like
how
this is the best we're going to do on a mock draft perspective.
delicate it can be too. Like I'll be like watching the actual draft, and the fact that a team drafted a player that I had low will be like, oh, I should. Is it too late for me to bump them up a couple spots? Clearly, if this team
Yeah.
values them, then I was missing something. But it's like, no, but that like just by sheer chance, you might be right, and that team might be wrong. So, because I remember feeling that specifically about Patrick Williams when the Bulls drafted
Oh
Patrick
yeah.
Williams high. I remember I think I was like maybe on the road traveling between Halifax and Toronto and watching it in like a motel and being like Patrick Williams, like, oh, it makes sense to me now. Like he's so big and strong. Like he's like the skill set is like the potential for a skill set is there. How could I have been so low on this guy? Like I had him all the way down at 16. I'm a fool. But now, no one's gonna make fun of me for having Patrick Williams at 16 and not um, bumping him up my draft and cheating at or my big board at the last second. So
Yeah, it turns out you
yeah,
can't just be a big, strong athlete and be a good NBA player. You need to have some skills as well.
I do feel though that in this draft that like I'm not done evaluating because there's just like
Yeah.
this. Everyone talks about the 2013 draft, or it's the worst since the 2013 draft. Or do I have that draft right? Am I listing the right one?
Yeah, 23-13 was
Um,
the honest draft.
yeah. So like everyone compares with that, but like that means that even if you want to compare, that means like some guy that we're not really focusing on is like gonna end up being a good NBA player. So as I make this list as I evaluate prospects, you're always starting with other people's like mock drafts, and like you're reading that and going from there, and then like
Mm-hmm.
then you kind of uncover a random player that maybe you feel higher or lower on than people.
Yes.
So like I think my list is probably going to change around a whole bunch more because there's just still
I
there's just still like guys I'm really really unsure about in a way that is very atypical compared to the last like I don't know like 10 drafts that I've followed.
Yeah, I've been following the combine pretty closely. I really got into college basketball and those prospects the second half of the year, and then kind of some of the international guys and G League Ignite guys after the season concluded. I feel pretty good about the top half of the draft, like the lottery. I will say, um, it's the second half of the first round and the early second round that I'm with you. I'll probably move guys around quite a bit, but I feel pretty good at least who the prospects are. Where and I'm not infallible by any means, but the guys that I feel like have a good shot at being quality NBA players.
All right, let's get to it. You have the first pick, right? Because one is an odd number.
Yeah, well, we're gonna go on Fanspo here and actually go through a draft, and we'll do odds and evens. So I'm gonna make the picks for 1, 3, 5, and so on, and then Ian will make 2, 4, 6, and I'm assuming you know how
Those other
numbers
numbers
work.
that are even.
Yeah.
Thanks for
So the
helping me
first
out with
pick
that.
is actually for the Hawks, and that's another nice thing about doing the mock draft now is we have the draft order now because the lottery happened last week or something. Um, so the Hawks actually they moved up from they had like the 10th or 11th best odds or something incredibly low, and they like moved way up. So the I actually have them taking the top guy on my board. Assuming there's going to be some kind of Trae Young trade, probably that's also factoring into this. And I have them taking Stefan Castle out of UConn. I had him
I
like
mean,
number 2 on my draft board for probably most of the college season, and then bumped him up a little bit because he won a national title with UConn. He was really really good in the tournament. Um, I don't know. I know
there's
you're high on Castle
definitely
too.
he has his haters, so I feel like
Oh yeah,
we do have to speak to the Stephon Castle haters that don't believe, who like have some legitimate concerns about not just his shooting, but his overall, just like like, is he going to be any kind of a scoring threat in the NBA?
yeah,
Is he going to be able to do things that there was also like there was a moment of panic where everyone thought he was 6'2" because
yeah,
they accidentally released Devin Carter's measurements as Stephon Castle's, and it was kind of like, oh, I think he might be completely over as a that's like that is not a I could have seen it going as low as like 6'4" or something, but if he's 6'2", like we're not talking about a player like I believe we talked about comparing him like to like Jimmy Butler or like like the college career of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander or these sort of like, and it's like nope, those are all out the window. He is too small to hit any of those visions. So, but yeah, what do you when you hear people doubting him as a scorer, what is your defense of that as you draft him number 1
Well,
overall for
it
the
it
Hawks?
seems to be the jump shot that most people question. Um, and I think there's a couple of things with Stefan Castle that suggest that he's not going to be hopeless as a scorer. And with that being said, he might never be an awesome jump shooter, like especially off the dribble. But his free throw rate or his free throw rate is decent, but his free throw percentage is good. He's over 75%, so he's a solid free throw shooter. He's pretty good at finishing around the basket. So it's a guy who has touch. This isn't like someone who has stone hands or something like that. But I think the thing that mainly the main reason to love Stefan Castle is he's just like a hellacious defender. Like he is one of the most active, energetic, in your face. He has just like lightning quick hands that are just poking at the ball. He gets so many steals where he just like pokes the ball out from a live dribble without fouling. He's excellent at that. He's a terror in transition. He's like really athletic. Obviously, he's pretty good at catching lobs. He's pretty good at finishing through contact. Like all of the ancillary offensive stuff is there. It's mostly just like, is he a good creator with the ball in his hands? And I think the main reason I'm not overly worried about it is his touch seems to be there, the work ethic seems to be there, the competitiveness seems to be there. He's just not good at making shots. But with that being said, like in watching a lot of Stefan Castle tape, I see him creating shots for himself all the time off the dribble, mostly mid-range shots at this point. But like he doesn't really seem to have any kind of issue stopping and starting and creating a little bit of space from the defender and getting himself a very clean look. He just has to get better at converting those. But I think a real big concern or worry with college players is when they're not able to create space and actually generate looks for themselves. And then at that point, it doesn't matter how good of a shooter you are. You're just not going to be a good on-ball scorer in the NBA.
Yeah. I think also some of the concerns, like, people tuned into the tournament and watched UConn's tournament run, and there were games where just like Stefan Castle just looked like there wasn't a way for him to contribute to an offensive possession.
Yeah.
But he like looking at those and just looking how cramped college basketball is. Like,
Yes.
I was being like, if
Especially
there
when
was a
Zach
little
Edey's
bit
in
of
the
space
paint.
here, I'm pretty sure Stephon Castle would run through there and then be able to do this. So it was like, as you're looking at this, like cluster of defenders camping out in the paint and watching him kind of stand at the 3-point line being like, I don't know what I can do right now. I kind of get it, and it might not be a thing that bothers in the NBA. And then just like a couple of these prospects that a couple of the prospects that I'm higher on in this are just like, I'm definitely just willing to flip that coin on whether they pan out as jump shooters or not. Like a couple of these guys are, a couple of them won't. It'll make a dramatic difference in how their NBA careers go. And so I'm like, I buy like flip the coin on Stephen Castle's jump shot in this draft.
Yeah, and even if he's not an awesome jump shooter, like that's why I like the Jimmy Butler comparison with him because it's like big, strong, physical guard. He's gonna draw contact. He's gonna just be super awesome and versatile on defensive end. But like he's a really good playmaker too. Is the other thing that needs to be said about Stephon Castle, even as an off guard. You know, there's rumors his agent only wants teams that don't have point guards to draft him.
I saw that today.
Yeah.
I thought that was so dramatic and extra and stemming out of like an interview where he talks about like I don't really get why it seems that maybe it happens in the draft, maybe they've been told by their agent, or maybe they're just like kids who really like the idea of themselves in a certain way. Like, I don't care what position you play. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to end up on a team that's going to need to use you in a certain way, just sort of like you wanting to be a point guard. I guess like you want to handle the ball. Like, cool. Like,
I don't think Stephon Castle is a dynamic enough scorer to be a starting point guard in the NBA right away. At least not on a team that's trying to win games. But
wait, so is he not going to work out for the Hawks? Is that?
Well, I mean,
they have not one, but two starting point guards. Like,
right? No, I'm assuming.
Currently,
I'm assuming like he's going to be a better fit alongside Murray than Trae Young is. You know, in the scenario where Trae Young is traded.
Yeah.
So
that's yeah. Do you, any more thoughts on Castle or his fit on the Hawks or anything like that?
I don't know. I just really like him. The more I watch Castle, the more I'm like, you know, as long as that jump shot pans out, I think everything else is there already. This is the kind of really dynamic player that, you know, could actually be a multi-time all-star, someone with upside worth investing in. So that's where I'm at.
Yep. I agree. He was not number one on my board, though, so I'll still be picking number one on my board.
All right, who's your number one guy?
The number two pick for the Washington Wizards. I'm drafting Nikola Topic.
All right. I figured Topic would be pretty high on your side of things.
Yeah, he's really just, you know, and all the footage I've reviewed, like, you know, I see this as a bit of a boomer bust pick, but like, you know, I can see how it doesn't pan out, but like he's the only footage I'm watching that where I'm like, wow, that guy's like, just watching him like rip the heart out of defenses, get all the way to the rim really consistently, like one of the only good sources of like rim pressure in this draft at an acceptably decent size. I don't think he's like the next coming of Luka Doncic. I think even just like kind of digging into the stats, there's some like obvious things that Luka was very special at across the boards that Nikola is not. And he's not a good 3-point shooter right now, but I think there's even less concerns about his overall touch when you just sort of look at he already has the ball in his hands all the time and isn't really a pull-up jump shooter yet, but he shoots like 80% from the line and isn't even that bad on catch and shoots. But then you watch his actual 3-point looks and they're coming. He's only shooting in the most like awkward points in the offense. There's never like, it's not like has plays run that produce open looks for him. Like he's a high pick and roll point guard on heavy volume, just sort of like driving into the teeth of the defense. And he's the only one that has that really popping improvisational proactive passing in the draft.
Yes.
And really just his ability to get to the rim, actually get to the rim and finish when he gets there and draw looks. I just think that's like that as like a little superpower is just a lot better than anything that I see being offered on the menu of the 2024 draft prospects.
Yeah, I love Topic. I had it, you know, I had him not number one or number two actually, but I had him on number 3 on my draft board, so I would have taken him next if you didn't. Yeah, I think he does have like, he is really good at getting the rim, but I would honestly say he's really good at like just getting a shot anywhere on the court. Like he doesn't seem to struggle at all just getting his defender off of him. And like these are, you know, maybe too high of praise, but like I do think he has a little bit of Luka's just like physicality and kind of change of pace-ness, but he also has like a little bit of SGA herky jerkiness to his game too.
Oh, definitely a nice like stop and start, like shiftiness.
Yeah, I mean, I just every shot he creates, like it's not contested, you know, like he just like makes his move and then like it's an open lane and it's an open mid-range jump shot, it's an open 3-point shot. Like every shot he takes is open, and he doesn't even need a pick to do that, and that's That's not something you see all that often.
When I read like analysis by other smart people who are lower on him, I feel like they're always trying to get into like the nitty gritty of why it might not work out. Like they're doing some mental gymnastics for why he might not be as good as he sort of appears. And I'm like, and maybe if there's a bunch of other big, exciting potential stars at the top in this draft, I would pay more attention to that. But I think you're all overthinking it. Like, watch this guy play. Like, he's he just has a lot of control over the game. Like, he looks heads and shoulders above guys he's playing against. He's always a step on ahead, both on offense and even like sometimes on defense. He shows a little bit of like, uncanny ability to anticipate plays. And without like, if he was, like a 6'2" guy, I'd get wondering about it translating. But like, he's a big physical guard that has lots of advantages. So he's just he's the only one that the first moment I was watching film, like the first time I kind of poured over some of his offensive tape, I was just like, okay, yeah, this guy's really good. Like, next, I've seen enough. This guy's really good. But when I watch anyone else in this draft, I'm like kind of squinting a little bit more and being like, yeah, I mean, I can see that maybe being an NBA skill, or like this, if it kind of trended in this way, it could be an NBA skill. But with Topic, just really the playmaking, the dribble penetration and the sort of like the craftiness with the ball in his hands just seems like screams obvious NBA skills. So yeah.
I felt that way about 3 players in the draft: Topic, Castle, and then the guy I'm going to take at number 3 here, who actually is Alex Sarr. I'm going to take him for, looks like, the Rockets at this point. I have come around a lot on Alex Sarr recently, and I think it's just, I think it's the combination of kind of like the physical presence, like the body and the athleticism, with the ball skills that he already has. Like in many ways, like this is a guy who has like a lot of perimeter skills in a 6'11" frame, who's like a plus athlete. And it's hard to like not, I guess, see like a little bit of shades of Anthony Davis, like not current Anthony Davis, but like at Kentucky when he was like really skinny, but like, he was like a really effective rim deterrent, but then also like you put the ball in his hands on offense, like from the perimeter, and he could like dribble into the lane. He could like finger roll the ball into the basket. Like, I mean, there's a lot of that with Sarr to a lesser extent because like he's playing in a league where there's not much space. The windows are just really tight. And then B, like he just has a lesser role on that team. Like he wasn't considered the star of the Perth Wildcats while he was there. He was, he was a lesser option on offense. But like when he did get opportunities, like I guess the main thing you'd be concerned with him about is just like the skinniness. Like a lot of 19-year-old big men, he's skinny. And like a lot of 19-year-old big men who age in NBA training programs, I think he'll fill out and get stronger. But I just really like the physical tools. The main thing to be worried about, I guess, is really just like lack of volume. And like if he is really this talented, why wasn't he like scoring more than 9 points a game? But whenever he does things with the ball, or whenever he's defending the rim, like I just really like how he moves. I just like how he looks on a basketball court. So
I mean, on one hand, I also had Alex Sarr pretty high. I mean, I have him at number 3 on my board as well. So, you had him at 2, but I have him at 3. Yeah. So like overall, we're not viewing him differently in terms of his, like, where he belongs in this draft, but I don't have the same, like, I have a very opposite feel on a lot of his physical tools. I have him at 3 because, like, okay, here's a big man that obviously can move his feet really, really well in the perimeter, can change directions really easy, can make multiple reactions in a play, get him to the right team, and they're going to be able to build a useful player out of that. I don't think, and then there's this kind of idea, like, the shooting touch isn't too bad. Maybe this is a guy who's also going to, like, not just be a rim running threat, but like a guy who can anchor your defense and shoot threes. That's a very useful player. That's like Chet.
Yeah.
But I watch him play, and I don't like anything about his offense. I think it all looks like gimmicky, and none of them look like real. And like I don't think he takes shots that he'll ever be allowed to take in the NBA.
Well, I don't
He
love the
runs
turnaround
in and
jumpers. I'm just more like, when he gets half a step on his defender, like he's like taking it hard to the rim and looks totally comfortable with the ball in his hands and laying it in. So
I just don't agree. I think whenever there's any contact, you see him shrivel up. He takes a lot of like awkward. I think there's a lot of his like a lot of the biomechanics on offense and like how he attacks and how he gets into his moves are just like you're never going to see him do that in the NBA at all because they're nowhere near NBA level. And that's
yeah,
like when you say like, oh, why is he only averaging 9 points per game in this like okay league, and it's just like because like he's like a big powerful guy. I'm also not worried about his skinniness. Like he looks like I can picture what he's going to look like after a couple of years in NBA weight room. I think he's going to be a physical force, but
yeah,
yeah, I just see like an overly athletic guy who's being allowed to flip up some crazy shots because he can get separation so easily, but I don't see any of that translating. Like I'd be very surprised to see Alex Sarr doing any of the things we're currently watching him do on tape in the NBA. I think he's going to be put into a like extremely restricted role. They're going to work on his shots, and I also even have concerns about him as a rim runner because I just don't think he likes to eat up contact. I think like when he gets into the paint with a lot of other like bigger bodies, like he loses a little bit of his physical dominance. Like he needs to get by guys to look really athletic. And the moment when he's like sort of dealing with contact, like that's my big concern about Sarr. I just don't see it offensively what other people are seeing, or at least like I think he's a big project on that end. But defensively, I can just like I look at the feet and be like, that's an NBA skill. That's definitely going to work. You
yeah.
want to add a really mobile big, really tall, really mobile big to your program. So you have them going to San Antonio. Do we want to talk about like the fit of that at all in terms
Well,
of
I
like?
don't have him going to San Antonio. I had
Oh,
him going to
sorry.
the
Where?
Wizards at 2.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah,
But
I'm
now
just
you.
kind of
Oh no,
going
wait.
down
So
my list here. If I was actually making a selection for the Spurs,
wait, this is the Rockets pick actually. My bad. Not
oh
San
yeah,
Antonio.
yeah, right, you're right. Yeah,
So
Rockets.
that's
I mean,
sure
I
playing
guess
next to Sengun. I don't think that's crazy. Like,
yeah, he could be their backup 5 slash future plan at 5 if things don't work out with Sengun for whatever reason.
he's a different look at least, and I don't. I would be surprised if Sarr was playing big minutes as a rookie. I just think like being a rookie center is so hard, and then I just don't think the skills are really there enough for him to play a lot of minutes at power forward like
Yeah,
right away. Like I don't think he's gonna have the skill based
definitely not.
versatility to do that. But and then yeah, I can't picture him playing over like Jabari Smith Jr. or Sengun right away or really are in big minutes. But I think he's I don't like he could be the kind of guy he's like a top pick and then like we don't actually see him that much in his rookie year. I wouldn't be surprised by that either. But again, in this draft, I think those the size and the mobility are just like yeah, that's worth like a shot adding to your program kind of
Well, I
thing.
mean, if he's like a John Collins type on offense and then can protect the rim on defense, that's not the worst player. He's an okay
Yeah,
NBA rotation player. So
I think he has a good chance to be a good NBA player. I'm not like completely sold on it because we have seen like really nice big athletes just sort of like not have. I don't like his hands either. Like I just don't think like I don't like. I'm really worried about his offense. I don't see any of
okay.
that as being a definite NBA thing. But
Well, I can agree
yeah,
with you. It really depends a lot on how he develops offensively, but I think that's true for
yeah,
almost everyone in this class. So
yeah. We're just on different places of how far away that or like how much he would need to improve is I think our only difference on this one.
yeah,
But again, I had him at 3 just because I trust that one skill more than the next guy. Which I guess if you're ready to move on, we'll draft someone for the Spurs. I'm
yeah. Who
sure
are you taking for the Spurs?
everyone wants them to get a guard. So this is where you start seeing like you already start seeing Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham but I'm just gonna draft Ron Holland here.
Ooh,
Um,
okay.
and not a huge fan of his game, and I'm not even like no from this point no on I'm not a huge fan of anyone's. Actually, that's not true. There's some guys that I really like, but I just think kind of with the same thing as Sarr. I just see there's There's a big wing body who is very, very fast. He's dumb as a post right now in terms of basketball IQ. Like, he does not make good decisions. I see him as like a Jonathan Kuminga type of prospect, where it's like, okay, there's a lot of athletic power here. Get him working on his like shot and handles, get him into a program for a couple of years, and we might have a starting small forward in the NBA.
I think he already has a better handle than Kuminga did coming into the NBA.
Yeah. And I mean, he's like, Ron Holland was a perimeter player, and Kuminga was playing exclusively at the 4. I just more mean like the level of prospect, where it's like, okay, there's clearly some real standout NBA athleticism here.
Yes, definitely.
The game is kind of a mess. Playing on the G League Ignite is a mess. Like, it's just like, and this year it was worse than ever with some of like the sort of complementary players they have. Like, all the guys in there looked kind of awful. So I'm trying to like factor that in a little bit in his favor with all those G League Ignite guys. I'm like, maybe you are a little bit better than you look, but yeah, I'm kind of drafting the body here. Just Ron Holland is like, has a chance to be a starting small forward in the NBA.
Yeah, I like Ron Holland a lot. I had him next, going to the Pistons at 5, but I think factoring in how much of a mess G League Ignite was, Ron Holland was asked to do a lot of things. He was asked to create a lot of shots with the ball in his hands. He was asked to kind of like run the G League Ignite offense a lot. And he did like a bad job kind of turning into an okay job over the course of the G League Ignite season. He did get better.
Agreed.
Like, you saw improvement throughout the course of the year. Like, and that in and of itself is promising. Like, if you just see someone take a really bad situation and not like collapse, but start to make lemonade out of those lemons. So,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, Ron Holland turned from like not a good shot creator at all to like an okay one. He can definitely find space. He can definitely either attack the basket or, like he's a good enough twitchy athlete where like defenders aren't like right up on him. So like if he finds an adequate jump shot, he's going to, have plenty of opportunities to use it.
Yeah, that's like, I think that's the book on him. I don't watch the film, and I don't fall in love with what I'm seeing, but I do see some pretty clear, like an easier path than some of these other guys to.
Yeah, my comp for him was Jaylen Brown, like a skinny Jaylen Brown, because Jaylen Brown at Cal was kind of similar. Just this athlete that had questions about his handle, questions about his shot creation, didn't really do anything all that well, but like all the physical tools were clearly there. Kuminga's another one, just raw toolsy guys who haven't really put it all together offensively yet. Like, Ron Holland is another one of those guys. Mostly just to say that there have been a lot of this type of player drafted in the NBA who have succeeded through player development. And then I'm sure you could find examples where they haven't succeeded as well. So,
yeah, Stanley Johnson type, like
yeah.
I feel like they're always worth a shot.
Were you about to say Zaire Williams?
I mean, Zaire Williams had some. I like Zaire Williams, but there was more physical questions with him. Like,
yeah, he was really skinny, and really continues to be. So
doesn't have long arms. Wasn't really able to get in the rim. Like, he was like strictly kind of like a guy who got to like these sort of mid-range pull-ups in college and didn't really create separation outside of his height. So. I'm less surprised by that. But Ron Holland, I think, doesn't have those obvious question marks.
Yeah. All right, for the Pistons here, I'm going to take the guy I had at 4, just ahead of Ron Holland, who's actually his teammate, Buzelis. I like everything about Buzelis other than the jump shot. Some of what you're saying about, I mean, we're just going to keep repeating this over and over in this class. It's like Castle, it's like Topic, everything other than the jump shot, like I really like a lot. He is skinny, that's another thing, but he's tall, he's really bouncy, given the fact that he's I don't know, like, not trying to stereotype, but like white and from Eastern Europe. You don't always expect like incredible bounce with those dudes, but yeah, he has a lot of lift around the rim and stuff, which I've been impressed by. I think he just plays really well off of people. I just saw like high IQ basketball whenever I watched Buzelis play. Like the results weren't always there, but like him and Holland had a really nice 2-man game at times. Like Buzelis is he's really decisive with his movement off the ball. Like, he dumps the ball off to whoever, and then he doesn't just stand around. Like, he just, like, immediately goes and finds a spot in the offense. Like, he understands spacing concepts very well. I think he has a really good handle for his size, too. Like, the only other thing that worries me is, like, the wingspan isn't crazy. I believe he clocked in at 6'9", but he only has a 6'10" wingspan, so only like a slightly plus wingspan. You'd like to see longer than that, obviously, but like he is a really good athlete and he's really tall for his position.
I buy it. I think the more I watch some of the defensive footage on him and realize he's pretty solid on that end. Both like the bounce you're talking about really shows up. The man got some blocks in the G League.
Yeah,
like pretty solid. He had he had a really high block rate in general. He moves pretty well laterally, not like a lockdown guy, but again, we're talking about like a 6'9", 6'10" player who moves well laterally, and has a bit of a knack for help defense already. I don't really the offense seems a bit theoretical right now because he clearly has like a smooth feel for the game, and he's a capable ball handler. Like, he looks fine with the ball in his hands, but I just watching him, but what do you do?
No, he's definitely not. He's definitely not the guy you want running your offense.
No, I think you were drafting him as like a glue guy. I think.
I'm calling him Baby Franz for now, just because I think he reminds me of Franz Wagner, not necessarily in every way. Obviously, he has much better hops, but like when Franz Wagner is like running the offensive possession for the Magic, like I don't really feel like you're getting an awesome shot, and I feel kind of like the same way with Buzelis. But if he's just like involved, like if he's setting a screen or if he's like receiving the kick out pass, like I just trust that he's going to do the right thing.
Yeah, I also, just looking at his shot, I think he's going to be fine as a shooter. Like, it looks just like I think
he was a better shooter in high school. He really struggled in the Ignite this year.
Yeah, I've heard that, but even just like looking, I mean, she shot 26% from three, but like, I don't know. I looking at it, the form looks fine. I don't know. I think he'll probably be a good shooter. It'd be disappointing if he's not. Might even be a bit of a Franz Wagner disappointment if he's clearly can't shoot in his third year in the league. Like, that's like not that Franz Wagner looked like a good shooter in college, mind you. He wasn't projected to be the level of offensive player he is, but Wagner, after his rookie season, I think we're like, okay, he's going to be a really good offensive player who can shoot, and that has not materialized and should be chipping away a little bit at the Wagner enthusiasts out there, especially because it really held up in the playoffs. But I mean, I think there's a lot of differences between these two players. I think I always compared him a little bit to Jaden McDaniels. I think I've mentioned that to you before. Just like, not Jaden McDaniels, who he is in the NBA right now, as one of the preeminent stoppers, because I don't think that's his game. But I remember watching Jaden McDaniels tape when he was a draft prospect and was like, oh, it's like a 6'10" guy who's talented. Like, he'll figure out something in the NBA.
Yeah.
I don't know what his actual role is, and I don't know that with Buzelis, but I think he's good enough at enough things, and the athleticism and size are there where it's like he's going to go to a team and they're going to need him to do something, and he's probably going to be able to figure it out at some level. So yeah, I like that pick. I think Buzelis is solid. Who did we draft him to?
What was that?
Who did we draft him to?
Where the Pistons.
Sent him to the Pistons.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, why not?
I think he'd be a great fit there.
Please shoot it better for the Pistons' sake. If you get drafted at 5, Matt has Buzelis, they really need it.
You're up for the Hornets. We still have the number 1 player on ESPN's mock draft board available.
Yeah, I'm not drafting him there. But because I'm not actually. This is actually a bit confusing for me because I'm not going to draft the player I had in that spot because
you have someone higher.
No, I just like Mark Williams, so I don't want to draft a center here. Unless you think Mark Williams is.
You don't want to do some Klingon action.
I've seen him projected at 5 to them, but I'm just like, Mark Williams is really good. Like, I feel like he was kind of like their second best player when he was healthy last year.
Klingon is in a lot of ways kind of in the same mold as Mark Williams anyway. So
Yeah. So I mean, do I want to bust out at this point? I'm kind of like looking up and down the list, and I'm just gonna go straight to Tristan da Silva.
All right.
And
Tristan da Silva,
maybe
number 6 to the Hornets. Where's he
and
at?
like maybe for anyone watching this has been like, well, that's like not a name that's been that high in mock drafts,
Oh,
but he
he's
is one of
he's
the players
rising
that
up. He's been rising up lately.
the more I watch the footage, I don't get why he isn't being discussed more. Like, am I missing something at this point? Like, we're talking about a player who's 6'9", with solid athleticism, a good first step, attack, really, really, really great outside touch. So already there, you kind of have this, projectable role, like a Michael Porter Jr. type. But then you kind of dig into the film a little bit, and it's like, oh, he's smart.
Yep.
Like, he's tough and smart, and he makes lots of high IQ plays all over the board. Just seems like I mean, I don't know if he's like a starter on day one, but I feel like if he was, he's like kind of another guy that would figure out and just brings obvious value in a role that every team needs, like a pure, especially if you're a team like Charlotte, where you're like want to run everything through LaMelo, and you got Brandon Miller wanting to create for himself. Like, pairing them with guys who get off the ball and do things in lower usage roles is important. And I don't even think that he's like necessarily strictly confined with that, because some of the playmaking I see hints at like the ceiling here might be a little bit higher than just sort of like being 3 and D or whatever. Do you have any reasons why not to draft Tristan da Silva
He
at
has
6
he has
here?
one major weakness, which is that he is really skinny. He shies away from contact on the defensive side of the ball a lot.
Mm.
He really got shoved around a lot at Colorado. Like, if you dive into the tape, and I mean, a lot of college offenses do play like these bruising power forward types that you're never going to see in the NBA, right? Where they're there to like get offensive rebounds and like punch people in the teeth. Um, you're not going to run into that in the NBA. But with that being said, he is very slight. He needs to get in the weight room. And I mean, he also
He's
has
also
those narrow
23,
shoulders, so I
I
don't
think.
know how much that's going to change, right? But like offensively, there's basically nothing that isn't wonderful with De Silva. Yeah, I've had him in the lottery for a long time now, and just very recently, a few mock drafts are starting to kind of clue into that and move De Silva up. Yeah,
I think the reason he doesn't go this high is just his age. Like, he's 23 years old.
yeah,
It's like I don't think too many people. It's going to be a tough stomach. But so again, this is indicative of like how I feel about this draft. Like, I think this is going to be a player. I have major concerns that other people will turn into NBA players, regardless of whether they are 3 or 4 years younger than De Silva is at this point. So, getting into the part of the draft where I'm, yeah, drafting guys I think have a decent chance of success, and that's I think he'd be a good fit in Charlotte too. I can't see that again. 23-year-old going in the top 6 feels like a stretch, but that's what I would do.
yeah. No, I mean he's really good. He's really good offensively. He can pass, he can drive it, he can handle, he can shoot it. Everything he does, he does. He has very rapid processing brain, which is a necessary thing to be a playmaker in the NBA. He has the whole package. So no, I totally get it. Yeah. So
And
number
can he get it?
seven
And can
for
he get into an NBA weight room and have a little
yes,
bit of potential
he
body
needs to put on like 20
transformation
pounds of
too?
muscle to be even somewhat okay on defense at the NBA level.
I
But
like he's got good hands though.
yeah,
Like he's a guy that can make plays, and I don't think he's like clueless or helpless on that end. Just sort of like, yeah, skinny.
no, there's
I
nothing
thought like
about him
Colorado had,
that's like a big red flag, I would say.
yeah.
Number
Okay,
7 for my
we're
Portland
jumping.
Trailblazers. I think I'm going to do the same thing you do. I'm going to skip the next guy that I have in my draft order. And I'm going to go to the guy that I actually have mocked number 7 to my Trailblazers, which is going to be Keyshawn George out of Miami.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Um, I see a lot of people calling him raw. Like, he's clearly very talented. Um, he averaged 7 points a game. Maybe that's part of the claims about him being a raw player. But I mean, he averaged close to 10 points a game when he was inserted into the starting lineup a third of the way through the season. So I mean, the 7 points a game is counting the first third of the season where he was barely playing. He's one of the best shooters in this draft class, and he's 6'7", and has a frame that I think will fill out. I think he's going to be big. So this is like a big wing who can shoot 40% on pull-up threes, and looks very comfortable doing it. And the thing that really sold me was like, okay, the raw efficiency is there. Is this just a guy who's spotting up? And the answer is like, no. He actually shoots most of his shots, or like a high percentage of his shots at least, off the dribble. And a lot of those are like, contested, 5 feet behind the 3-point line. Like he's not shy about shooting the ball at all, and it goes in. So very pure shooting stroke. He's not like an incredible straight line athlete. Like he's not like a burner exactly. But the one thing that he does have is he's really strong. Again, like in big player, maybe I should stop mentioning it over and over. But like he's really strong. He has a decent handle. Straight line drive at the rim. Like if his shooting is going to hold up, that's going to unlock opportunities to do that. And like he can finish or make a dump off pass when he gets there. So I just think decently high basketball IQ. Possibly one of the best shooters in this draft class. And he's not like a small guard. He's like a big wing. So I love that skill set attached to this position. And he's super young too. So that's another thing.
Maybe a good reason to take him over to Silva. I like the tape. I like the tape. I like the shot. I think at this point in the draft, he's like represents a lot more upside than a lot of other people. I like I'm from Switzerland, and he's a Swiss boy, so I got to represent the rare Swiss basketball players that make it to the NBA. So I'm happy to see him here. But yeah, the shot looks real. The size and like ability at the guard position look legit. He's the guy that I sometimes see pop up high on mocks and get completely ignored in others. Like he's just not on everyone's radar, or he's not everyone's cup of tea. But
I think that's a mistake. I mean, you don't have to have him as high as number 7, but if he's listed, if a 6'7", 19-year-old who shoots 42% from 3 is listed at 28 in your mock draft, I mean, maybe you should.
And has like legitimate playmaking chops that are.
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring up the combine measurements to see what he actually measured out of at the end.
He has a 6'10" wingspan. I think the hand
6'7"
size
without shoes, 6'10" wingspan. Fine. Still pretty. Another very skinny boy, but at least he's not a skinny.
Yeah, but he's got broad shoulders, so he's not like a De Silva level of skinny, where he's probably never going to get too much heavier.
Yeah, that's a good pick. All right, who am I? And that guy, what team did we send him to?
That was for the Blazers.
You're Trailblazers, so you're happy about that. So now we get another Spurs pick, because Raptors, you lost your pick to the Spurs. Sorry if there's any Raptors fans listening to this.
Jakob Poeltl trade.
Yeah, I'm drafting Jakob Poeltl with the 8th pick, and where do I want to go here? Again, the Spurs, like everyone would love for the Spurs to draft a guard, and I will draft a guard, but probably not either of the ones you want that play for Kentucky. And I'm going to.
Who are you talking to?
Not you. Just everyone else besides you.
The collective you.
Yeah, not the collective we. I'm going to go with Devin Carter at.
Yeah. All right.
At whatever
he's
spot
way
we
down
are
at 17 on ESPN. Okay.
Devin Carter, I get that. I mean, he just feels like a lot of other. In terms of like his measurement,
he's listed at 16 feet tall.
Well, that's the main reason I'm drafting him, is that he's 16 feet tall and 8 inches, which will make him. We can move Victor Wembanyama back to power forward now, because we've got something. Wow, they really, when it comes to he must have some weird black magic that prevents his measurements from working, because the other thing that happened did we say it on pod that Stefan Castle's measurements were released as Devin
Yeah,
Carter's
Stefan
and everyone
Castle is
panicked? So
listed at 6'2".
he's 6'2", without shoes with a 6'9" wingspan. And like, I don't know, just look at those rebounding numbers. They're up on the screen right now. Just like, this is a physically dominant guard at the college level who plays with a hugely high motor. I do not see him as like a, all-star lead guard in the NBA necessarily, but we were talking in our most recent pod about Andrew Nemhard and Derek White and guys that just sort of like, and he's like a lot more physically imposing in a lot of ways than Nemhard. Has that massive wingspan, just completely dominated the glass as a 6'2" player. Those kinds of things are like major indicators of NBA success when you're able
Yeah,
to have
definitely.
that kind of like low, like high key physical dominance, where you're just like, you're in some ways very much like a man playing against boys. And yeah, and he had that. I just sort of like, yeah. Any thoughts on Devin Carter?
I really like him.
Too high?
I no, well, only a little bit. I had him mocked to 11 to the Bulls. Um, you know, continuing the sad legacy of Lonzo Ball. Maybe a happy ending to that. Um, just a really
True.
physical defensive menace guard there. Yeah, I like Devin Carter a lot. He's just highly productive. I don't know. I think he's an incredibly high floor NBA player.
I think he has the potential to be like an all defense level guard who doesn't hurt your offense in any
Yeah,
way. Like he's a good 3-point shooter, and he's like been an improving 3-point shooter. I don't buy him quite as lights out. Like I think it's like his free throw percentage is around 75%, which is good, but doesn't indicate like sneakily this is a elite 3-point shooter in the NBA. He shot the three well this past season, but I just think like all those are like checking the boxes as acceptable, and then we just look at his like defense and his physical skills, and he's just like, this guy's going to be good. And again, like that's if I can get a guy in this draft that I think is going to be good, I am going to draft him regardless of his position on other mock boards. So
yeah.
that is my pick there.
I have no complaints with you because I like Devin Carter a lot. Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna change up my mock. Originally, I had Klingon going to the Grizzlies at 9, but I think it's time to rip the Band-Aid off. I'm just gonna take Reza Shea at.
But I like Klingon going to the Grizzlies. I think
I
that's
do
like
too. I mean, that's
exactly
why
what
I
they
have him in
need.
my mock going to the Grizzlies.
But you have Reza Shea higher.
I have Reza Shea higher than Klingon. Yeah. You know, this is not a very encouraging start to the Zachary Reza Shea analysis. Reza Shea's fine. Like, maybe he's another high floor player. I guess my main complaint with him is I just don't think he's ever going to do anything on the ball, really.
I'm sold. I'm sold.
I think he could be a pretty good defensive player, a pretty impactful defensive player. I think he could be a pretty good off-ball spot-up threat. He actually seems pretty good in transition from the tape that I've watched. Like, he seems pretty comfortable if he's running at a full steam and the defense isn't set. He's totally fine taking the ball to the rack and dunking it or laying it in. Yeah, I mean, all the secondary offensive things, I think he'll be completely solid at. Some people don't trust. I mean, he shot like 42% from 3 this year for Jail Bourges. Not sure where that's located. In France somewhere. One of the French teams. Yeah, he had an awesome year from 3 this year, which really helped his draft stock. A lot of people don't trust that because that's like not really his track record. He's more an okay 3-point shooter who had a hot season maybe. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm not excited about Reza Shea. I just think, like, it fits a need for the Grizzlies. They really need a wing, like, badly. And they want someone who can defend and space the floor. I think he does those things well. Yeah. He's just not, like, a crazy high ceiling guy.
I think the athleticism is actually more standout than people give him credit for. Like like how many of his highlights are baseline dunks? Like spotting up in the corner,
Yeah.
getting a close to the baseline. He gets up on those baseline dunks. Like he's at any level, I think he's a really, really good athlete. I think the measurements are a little like they listed him at 6'10". Then he measured the last
He's
time he got
6'8".
measured, he was Yeah, he was 6'9.5" in shoes at Hoop Summit with a 6'10" wingspan. He's got a really long neck, which is never like a great build based off height. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, like you don't want your like your vertical presence to be the distance between your shoulders and your head in the NBA, but like
Yeah. Exactly.
he is. I just like if the shot's real, like I'm confident the athleticism is real. If the shot's real, that's very like functional. But yeah, I just don't see any other game, and the footage is kind of unhelpful with him because we really only get to see him in transition where he's like already shows some kind of sloppiness dribbling the ball. He's
Yeah. I mean,
he's
I think that'll
he's
be cleaned up. You know,
I
his
mean
handle
maybe it
is
just
his
I don't
okay,
know.
and
I
it
get
should get better.
sometimes guys handle gets better and sometimes like Andrew Wiggins traumatized me. Just like I kept saying for
Yeah,
years, like as soon
that's
as he
true.
gets a little bit better with his handles, it's gonna unlock everything. I'm just like, yeah, well, what if that never has? Like, but he's got big hands, but sometimes it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm fine with any team that values Rizachet highly. I see why, but it's like you say, it's kind of like he's got a couple of these things that are extremely encouraging and then like just question marks everywhere else. It's a lot. He's kind of a mysterious
I
prospect in that sense
He's
because
one of
it's
those
just like
guys where I think I can pretty confidently say I don't see a huge on ball game developing with him. Like he could
he's
be an
never shown
effective
anything in that
offensive.
regard. Yeah.
He could be an effective offensive player. He's just you're going to need a star, or an offensive system to create shots for him.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So we just drafted him to the Grizzlies instead of Donovan Clingan, which they badly need a center, which leads me to the Jazz, who already have Walker Kessler. I don't imagine like Donovan Clingan is exactly like the most exciting pick for them. So it looks
Walker
like we
Kessler is
have
like the
a
most common
official.
guy he gets compared to.
Exactly. Like, so I'm not drafting Donovan Clingan. We have our big faller of this mock draft. And what's the point of doing a mock draft if there's a little bit of drama? So,
Exactly.
Donovan Clingan is still sitting in the green room with his parents. They're looking like awkward. The camera keeps going to them. But if I'm not drafting Clingan here, because I'm not positive he's going to be better than Walker Kessler. Walker Kessler sort of faded a little bit in his second year, but is overall still like projects as a strong rim protector. Ooh, you're not gonna like my next pick. And I don't like my next pick. But this is where we are in the draft. I'm drafting Cody Williams.
Oh no, I'm fine with that pick.
Okay. I thought you were
This is about where I
drafting
had him
Cody
going.
Williams. Okay. Yeah, I mean Cody Williams was a darling early in the draft process because he's Jalen Williams' brother. He's a 6'8" wing with like handles and some rudimentary like like some like interesting driving ability, and he also like shot the ball really well from three on like on the few times he actually did shoot it from three. Um, he's like I think he's also like from a mock draft perspective, this is a good like landing spot for him because Utah could use the wings. I just have a lot of concerns with like I think he's nothing like his brother at all. Like he's not
No.
a good playmaker, and he doesn't have that same like physical confidence like Cody Williams. Like I mean, wait, this is De Silva's teammate we're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like if you think like De Silva shies away from contact, like Cody Williams did not want anyone to breathe on him sometimes. He's got a like 6% rebound rate. He has no interest in like getting involved physically to go after the ball. That's like, for if you don't know what that means at home, that's like a tiny point guard has a better rebound rate than that. So I think that's like a little bit concerning. I just like, yeah, just like I don't. It's hard to picture him as like people like him because he's a big wing, but I don't really think he's going to be a big like physical wing. He's got good length on defense. He's like, there's all these things where like if he improves, I see a decent type. But I Cody Williams, I think I started him at 3 because I like the idea of him. And the more I watched film on him, he's fallen to this point. But I still see like a functionally like skilled like 6'8" guy who does some interesting things.
Yeah. I've come back around on Cody Williams. I had dropped him outside of the lottery for a little while. I actually have him going 8 to the Spurs now. just because I think the wingspan is there. I think the defensive IQ is there. And this is I had him go into the Spurs specifically because I think he's kind of a Spursian player in some ways, where he's just very interested in being involved in the flow of the offense. He doesn't really want to do things or take shots outside of the flow of the offense. Like he wants to be a team player. Yeah, I wasn't aware the rebound rate was quite that bad. That is pretty low.
Yeah, so I think it came up in like a John Hollinger like top 20 article earlier today, and I was like, oof, that's I was already starting to be concerned based on footage, and then I was like, that's a number to attach to what I'm seeing. Wow.
Yeah. That's an area to be concerned about. I don't know. I like his upside as a defender. I think he moves really well. He has really long arms. He's pretty smart defensively. Yeah, like a lot of the guys in this draft, I think the defensive floor is pretty high, and offensively, like, the shot looks okay. He doesn't shoot often. He's a pretty hesitant offensive player. Like, he's not going to take a shot unless it's open.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's fine. That's where we're at.
Hey, we've gotten out of the top 10 now, and we have not drafted anyone from Kentucky.
Oh yeah. Well, yes.
And how much further will Donovan Clingan fall?
Maybe if we get through the lottery without those guys going, we can kind of reveal where we had them at. But
can you draft Donovan Clingan at 11 now to the Bulls?
Yeah, I think I'd draft Donovan Clingan here. He's not the next guy up on my board, but like center is a position of need for the Bulls. I don't think Vucevic is anyone's idea of the long-term option there. And Donovan Clingan's really solid. Like obviously the best rim protector in college basketball, hands down last year. No question about it. Had a 15-minute stretch against Illinois in the NCAA tournament where Illinois didn't score a basket, and Donovan Clingan was the main reason for that. They were just like petrified to go near the rim after he had a couple of blocks. I think he recovers really well. So one thing that's interesting is at the combine, he actually his movement measurements and his like down court speed weren't awesome. They didn't like jump off the charts. Zach Edey actually had better. I think he had he had better times on some of the movement drills than Clingan did, which surprised me. But if you actually watch, go ahead.
Zach Edey keeps winning the battles against Donovan Clingan, but losing the war.
It's just like, I know. If you actually watch them on the floor, I think it must be like quickness with the hands or reaction speed or something. Like Donovan Clingan has the some sort of ability, despite maybe his lack of objective 40-yard dash timing, where he can he can get beat and still recover and block your shot.
I think that's exactly what it is. Like I think when you nailed it when the first time you brought up recovery time, where it's like Zach Edey.
If you get past Zach Edey, you're laying the ball in.
Yeah, it's like Zach Edey can give a strong primary effort on defense, but that's it. Where Clingan is very engaged. He gets lower in his stance, and is able to cover ground better and recover when he doesn't make the initial stop. So that just makes him a whole different category of team defender, regardless of shuffling around the pylons or whatever. And I'm high on Zach Edey. I'm just like. I had Donovan Clingan 5 on my board, so this is a big fall for him. I just really didn't like the fit on any of those teams. Where it's like I don't think you're going to play Donovan Clingan in the next 5 years in this spot or this spot. But I mean, I would have loved him on the Grizzlies playing next to Jaren Jackson Jr. I think the exact kind of that would be a crazy formidable rim protection front line, and you can't play Jaren Jackson Jr. at center. I think that has been made overwhelmingly clear. And Steven Adams is gone. Donovan Clingan's also looks like the kind of player who can come in and probably play right away and make like a Walker Kessler type of impact. I have no idea what his offensive role is going to be, but he moves well. So it's just like, how much damage can he do as a rim diver kind of thing? Because unlike Edey, he doesn't really have the same likelihood of becoming a shooter. So
yeah, he doesn't really have a bag on offense, but he's a catch the ball around the rim guy and he'll dunk it. Like he doesn't have terrible hands or anything. Like he's not going to be a liability on offense. He's just not going to unlock another dimension of your offense necessarily.
I mean, if you get someone who ends up being a defensive anchor for you at 11 in this draft, that's quite a get. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely pro Donovan Clingan. I think there's a very good chance that he is just sort of like a really high level defensive player.
Yeah. Who do you have going number 12 to your OKC Thunder?
Um, well now let's see. Have we left anyone else? No, I guess because I think I had George right around here, Keyshawn George. So I am going to draft Reed Shepard at this
Okay.
point. Um, it's so funny to be saying like for most of the people listening to this is like a tumble for Reed Shepard, but I know who I'm talking to. This is a big rise from Reed Shepard.
It might be,
I
yeah.
don't like I don't buy a lot of the hype around around his athleticism and I don't have a clear idea of what his role is in the NBA, but I do think enough things like pop off the charts with him that at this point in the very late lottery, I'm kind of willing to add this sort of like combo guard that is a really high level shooter. Um, I don't really understand what to do with his defense. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't understand. Like he blocks so many shots. Like he's just like that's such a. But he can't really actually guard a whole lot of people one on one, just sort of due to his like size and lack. Like he's clearly able to make plays. He's a really weird player. Sometimes with like I don't have a compare. Like, and the people try to compare him to, I'm just like, well, it's really obvious why. Like people compare him to Alex Caruso sometimes.
No.
Um,
That's
and I'm just
that
like
is not a
I'm
good
just like
comparison.
yeah, I don't understand it at all. Like I'm just even just like in how they move and stuff like that. I also don't really, but on the flip side, people compare him to like Steph Curry, or people compare him to like, and I don't really see that either. He's clearly a good shooter, like even if you don't believe the 3-point shooting quite to the extent of which it looked for chunks last season, like he's shot 83% from the line. For a long time. He's a pretty good passer. I don't know about the actual like his ability to sort of like create off the dribble for people, but like really high assist rate for a guy who wasn't the primary creator. Like he's playing next to other creating guards. Like why do people keep going to Kentucky when they like as a guard? Why do you go to Kentucky where you're going to be sharing the backcourt with like 1,000 other guards? And as a big, why do you go to Kentucky when you know you're never going to get the ball? Anyways, it's a new coach coming there, so maybe it's a new era. But also, Kentucky guards have this reputation for overachieving in the NBA. So yeah, I don't know, just lots of stuff going on defense that I don't really understand. Lots of stuff going on offense that I don't really understand at this point in the draft. I'm just gonna I'm gonna take a random roll of the dice to find out what Reed Shepard is in the NBA as this tiny little guy who blocked like 23 shots. Like in the I don't know. It's like he's a bit fascinating. I'm not as fascinated as other people are, but
Well, I think a lot of the people who are making some of these comparisons just frankly don't watch college basketball or have
they don't know that they
or
don't know
have
that he
much
can't
of a sense
actually
of the
guard people with his
context.
feet.
I do have a comparison for Reed Shepard that I think is a lot closer than Steph Curry. Obviously,
Don't do it.
and this is based on the actual college basketball tape, not weird projections to the NBA. But I think I see a lot of Peyton Pritchard in his game.
Oh sure, yeah.
Peyton
No, I think
Pritchard
that's a really good call.
at Oregon was a pretty similar player. I think the one thing that is completely anomalous is the blocks. Like Peyton Pritchard wasn't blocking anyone's shot, but Peyton Pritchard was really good in passing lanes. He was really good on these hustle plays. He was a really good pull up 3-point shooter. He was really good at just like attacking gaps. He was really good at just making the smart, high IQ, heady play. That's more who I'd compare Reed Shepard to. And Peyton Pritchard has turned into a very solid backup point guard who can give you playoff minutes, and if that's who Reed Shepard can be, maybe in a draft class like this, it's totally fine to take him in the lottery. But yeah, that's more who I'd compare him to personally. The one thing that I will say about not Steph Curry. The one thing that I will say about Reed Shepard's 3-point shot that concerns me quite a bit is just like watch his lower body while he's shooting. It's like his legs are kind of all over the place. You know, like he has a very consistent form above the waist, but he's very unbalanced below the waist. He doesn't have like if you watch good shooters in the NBA, I will say like by far the most common form you're going to see, like watch a Paul George for example. He's my example of like, you know, kind of like an ideal jump shot. If you want to learn how to perfect your shooting form, watch Paul George. But you know, like he has the really nice gentle hop into kind of like this sway forward, where the entire body is just moving towards the rim. The ball is on track. It's not going to like veer to the left or right. He's only going to miss long or short. Everything is just very consistent. Reed Sheppard doesn't have the consistent mechanics with the three-point shot, so I can't really explain why it's been going in. Maybe it's legitimate. Maybe it's a hot shooting season. I'm not sure. We'd have to dive into the high school tape. You know, it depends on. He has a good free throw shooter, so that's part of it. There's only been one player in NBA history that I'm aware of who can get away with very inconsistent below the waist shooting mechanics and still shoot at a high percentage, and that is Steph Curry. So, as far as I know, I don't know any other NBA players who can get away with that and maintain a consistently high level of 3-point shooting. So,
it's just hard to square that with like 52% on 4.4 attempts per game and lights out from the line. Just like everything screams that this guy can shoot. It'd be like, yeah, I agree that's like it's unconventional, but it's like it's hard to like it's hard. Guys get hot over a season, but that's really hot.
Well, I'm just saying, like, what if he's a good 3-point shooter and not like all-time elite? You know?
Yeah.
Then you have
I don't think he's going to.
Then
be
you have
able
more
to
of a
generate
Peyton
the space to
Pritchard
be
than
all-time
who some
Yeah.
people think Reed Sheppard is going to be.
Yeah, I like his passing more than I like Peyton Pritchard's in college. And again, the sort of just like the huge block and steal rates, he's going to be able to like he's a feisty competitor on defense at a level that Peyton Pritchard. So I guess like that probably is where I have him is like Peyton Pritchard with a couple more tools in his belt.
Sure. Yeah, and that's why I've moved him into the first round. You know, earlier in the season I was a Reed Sheppard hater because I watched so much tape where Reed Sheppard was defending like in rotations, not just like jumping into passing. Like if you watch the highlights where like someone throws a lazy, you know, swing pass around the perimeter and he jumps into the passing lane and grabs it, you're like, oh, that's a good defender. But then if you watch him try to rotate and like just play within a regular position on offense, you see a short guy with short arms whose contests make literally no impact at all on the player who's rising up into his shot. So
I just realized that I drafted him to the Oklahoma City Thunder, though.
I thought that was a bit of a strange idea.
If it's not too late, I'm changing my pick. That's a brutal landing spot for him. Like when would they ever need I guess they need shooters, but like they already have like they got all the guards they can handle. I don't know. Maybe I'll just leave it. But I'm thinking of like what if I was Oklahoma City, I would go deeper. I would pop some random guys would pop up here. I think I might think about Kyle Filipowski here. I might think about Zach Edey here. And then I might be like draft and stash trading the pick.
Or let's pretend that the Thunder trade for Brandon Ingram and this pick is held to the Pelicans.
Sure. Perfect. We did it. We've got a trade to announce.
I had him locked going to the Pelicans at 17, so that's why I mentioned the Pelicans.
Well, let's keep going just because we've already talked about Reed Sheppard enough.
Okay.
Who do you have going next to the Sacramento Kings?
Sacramento Kings. Yes. I had Jacoby Walter going here, number 13. But I actually have a guy who's still on the board above Jacoby Walter, so I'm going to take him, and that's Jared McCain to the Kings at 13. The more I've watched Jared McCain, the more I like him. He is another small guard. He's 6'2", is 6'3" wingspan, so he's Reed Sheppard sized. But he's a lot bigger and stronger than some of the other small guards in this draft class. He's, I think, clocked in at 203. So like he's a big dude for his height at least, and he plays with kind of like a fearlessness that I really enjoy a lot. I think he's one of the better shooters in this class. There are a couple of really good shooters in this class. But he is definitely up there within that, within that competition for being one of the best shooters in this class. I really like a lot of the aspects of his game. I just think like if you're gonna take a small guard who just like has a lot of juice on offense as a shooter, as a playmaker, he has some strength, he has some toughness, he can get to the rim. He's really productive at Duke as a freshman. I actually thought, on many nights he was their best player at Duke, which is a team that has a lot of talent. So that's always kind of a good indicator if you can rise to the top as a freshman on a team that has like a lot of other high pedigree players. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of things I like about his game. I actually like his fit on Sacramento a little bit more than where I had him going at 10 to the Jazz, because I think he's kind of like, they have another Keontae George. They just got one last year. So.
Yeah, do you think he could play minutes next to De'Aaron Fox?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's a tough one. That is a small backcourt for sure.
I do think he does play a little bit bigger than his size. He's like you're right. He is like a big physical guard. The shooting's always going to be an asset. I've watched. I was curious about his like defense and tried to pull up whatever defensive footage I could of Jared McCain, and came away like reasonably impressed. There's too many, like, I mean, we're just talking about Reed Shepherd. Like, there's just too many like 6'2" guards with 6'3" wingspans in this draft. I'm like, are we really going to draft like 5 more guys into the lowest percentile of NBA size?
Well, Jared McCain's the only one that I really like. He's the one I'm hanging.
Yeah, no, I think he's a good pick here. I'm more talking about the draft at large here. Like I have him in a similar range, but just kind of lumped in with a bunch of other guys. I like him a little bit better than Jacoby Walter, I think. Okay.
Jacoby Walter's a lot bigger. Like,
yeah, but I don't like the game as much. Just like,
he pretty much just shoots threes.
Yeah,
he's out there for one reason.
I can. Yeah, he kind of almost like, even he strikes me as just like a pure 3-and-D guy, which I think is fine, but I don't see the IQ. I don't like anything else. So I feel when you already project as a 3-and-D guy in college, like sometimes you just end up being nothing in the NBA. So like that's my concern with Jacoby Walter a little bit. And to be fair, like Rizashay and a couple of other guys, like there's these boxes, there's these not nice boxes to be put into that a lot of the prospects in this draft fall in. But yeah, I think Jared McCain is a fine pick there. That will bring us back to Portland for the end of the lottery.
Yeah, you're making the other Blazers pick, so treat us with kindness.
I think I'm just gonna be basic and go with Dalton Connect here.
Okay. Hey, as long as you don't leave us with Dillingham, I'm fine with
it. Right, we haven't drafted Dillingham, by far the most sort of like electric looking scoring guard in this draft, and neither of us are interested. I think I have lots of concerns about Dalton Connect. Like, I don't like some of the ways he moves. His legs remind me of Adam Morrison. I mean that in the worst possible way. But if he's able to add like whatever the physical strength he needs to keep his game going in the NBA, like I love he's going to be a good shooter. Like I feel guys like him, even if they don't live their best scoring dreams, like they still end up being Doug McDermott. Just kind of like a guy who's got a high IQ and a really wicked versatile shot that he can get off in all kinds of situations. If you're going to have questionable legs on defense, it's better that you're 6'6" instead of 6'3" or 6'4". So I think there's a possibility that his athleticism holds him back at the NBA level, but I also think that at the end of the lottery here, I think the chance that he pops are high enough, and they give him like a really, really functional shooter. I love his tape. I watch his game, and he gets off the cleanest looks so easily. But I'm not 100% sold that it how much of it will translate to the NBA. It's funny, just in this draft at this point, as we bring up prospects, it's like I only got bad things to say about why I don't think this player will pop, but I'm choosing them here because I like them more overall than the other options.
Yeah, I don't love that you left us with Dalton Connect there, but I mean,
who would you like?
He's fine. I had Khalil Ware going 14 to the Blazers.
Yeah, I think that's
just pure upside. There's a world
Yeah,
in which Kalel Ware is, you know, maybe putting Kalel Ware under the tutelage of DeAndre Ayton is not the best idea. As a guy who's kind of has questions about his work ethic to begin with.
I thought you would have been like a Carlton Carrington guy here, or
not on Portland, man. We have too many guards already.
yeah, because I also thought about like I had thoughts about like Isaiah Collier, but like not in that situation. Why would they need like this like on ball power guard? I have questions whether any team needs that much, but
I do
certainly
like that
not there.
Connect will go out of his way to like try to dunk on people though. Um,
Yeah,
he's not just your prototypical Doug McDermott type shooter. He has a little bit of nasty to his game too, even if he's
actually, you know what? Forget Dalton Connect. I'm drafting Zach Edey to Portland.
my worst nightmare.
I'm drafting Zach Edey to Portland because I think that Zach Edey is worth a roll of the dice because we don't actually have a we've never seen a prospect like Zach Edey. Everyone tries to compare him to other tall players, but like there's just no one with his unique exact set of size and mobility. Like every other giant, like he's clearly not Victor Wembanyama in terms of mobility, right? But compared to every other guy who is 7'4" with a 7'10" wingspan, Zach Edey is in a strange niche all by himself, where like he moves extraordinarily well for that size. There's like the closest we've seen is Boban, who like I sent you like old Boban footage the other day to kind of get an idea of the difference between them. Like Boban is absolutely nowhere near the athlete that Zach Edey is overall. The other thing is that like Zach Edey has all this untapped potential. Like when you just see him at the combine, like just like crushing all the athleticism drills and then just like knocking down all of his threes. I just don't think it's really clear what we have in Zach Edey. I don't think there is such thing as a player that will stop Zach Edey from scoring. I think that's just like what he was able to do at college is not going to change in any way at the NBA in terms of just like getting him the ball on the block and him getting to his hook shot is just not a thing. There's like two players in the world that can stop him from doing that maybe. And I think even against like someone like Victor Wembanyama, I think like Victor's going to struggle with the sheer the weight. So it's just like we know that he's got this one kind of insane off the charts skill. You know, he can punish you in the offensive rebounds. It's just a question of like how bad is he going to be on defense? Is he going to be bad enough at defense that you can't actually play him and win basketball games, or is he not quite that bad? Because we don't have an example of someone like this. He moves better than all the bad examples. He moves worse than all the good examples. So it's just like, who is Zach Edey? And again, this is the 14th pick in the draft or fifth. Like, yeah, I want to be the team that finds out. I want your team to be the one that finds out.
Well, yeah, that's my main concern with Zach Edey is the defensive side of the ball, not the offensive side of the ball. I think he could definitely be a useful offensive player. It was just really concerning in college. Every time he got beat, even if he like wasn't that far away from the basket, he just could not recover. Yeah, I don't know why that is, but you know, like if you come right at him, he'll block your shot. You know, he'll prevent you from finishing at the rim. But it's just like if you get him in space, he just like had no recovery. And I don't know why that is, and maybe that's something you're working on at the NBA level. But my worry is if it's a problem that doesn't get addressed, I just don't really see how he could be a good NBA player.
And the other thing is like he was pretty good actually coming to the level of the screen this year. Like they did extend him a little more defensively, and for most parts of it, he held up surprisingly well. Like his stance is okay. If he's showing on a pick and roll, he can absolutely like show and then lumber back into the paint. But the minute the scheme breaks for a second, it's like, yeah, you might as well just freeze him, like just turn him into an ice sculpture, because he's just like, there's no of that like, okay, get back with 2 feet, jump in the air and make a play. It's just sort of like he doesn't even try.
No.
So, yeah, whether that's something that is completely broken, or something that is something that is work. I have no idea because I don't even really know what it is, and I don't know how to diagnose it. And I can't think of another player that has that strange hole in their game kind of thing. Is it discipline? Is it preparing your footwork in advance, or is it like, oh, I can't move this amount of mass in this specific way, and that's non-negotiable? I'm not sure, but I think he's like, yeah. I just think that looking just. There was that moment, they play in the championship game. It's like, oh, he's up against like a guy that would be one of the three biggest guys in the NBA, and he's going to be guarded by this like 7'2", 7'3" guy. Maybe Zach Edey's just going to like turn into a pumpkin and be nothing in this.
Yeah, he scored on Klingon with ease, honestly.
He made Klingon look like all the 6'8" guys that try to guard him. It was just like there was absolutely no different. So once you see that, you're just like, okay, so there is no matchup for Edey. There's not like a thing you can do to stop him from getting to that hook shot.
Yeah,
and it's not like he doesn't have to just spam the hook shot. Like he's got other moves. He's really good, but like when the defense gets tough, he's just like, oh, I can just do this, and I will hit like 60% of these, which is just. Again, like you can't say that about someone like Boban and Boban, when he was still a little bit young and playing like backup center minutes was still actually unstoppable offensively. Yeah, the team's offensive rating would just like spike through the roof whenever he would touch the floor, but the other teams would spike higher. So I'm just like, if Zach Edey is just sort of like clearly more mobile than. I think he's going to be weak defensively. I think that it's just a question of how much, and is he a kind of player that can make it worth it? And I just like a guy on your bench that you could just bring off and like break some other, like, just kind of a lineup busting tool. I'm interested.
Yeah, and that's where I more see Zach Edey's career going right now. But if the defensive issues can be ironed out or can be mitigated in some way, maybe there is more upside there that I'm not seeing.
So let's talk about some of the guys we didn't draft.
Oh, we got one last pick.
We do.
Because Miami is at 15.
Yeah,
this is a 15 pick
you
lottery.
Really wanted to go to 15. Yeah.
I've spent a lot of thought and time and blood and sweat and tears trying to come up with this selection for the Miami Heat. But I think I have found the Heat culture guy in this draft. And that is, of course, Jalen Tyson out of the University of California. Who does not even have a photo
board? So tell me about him. No photo here, and yeah, I haven't watched him. I don't know anything about him. So tell me and
California.
About
California has been a really bad team in college basketball for really a long time, but definitely the 3-year tenure that Tyson had playing there. He was effectively their point guard. Even though he's more of a wing or shooting guard size. In the NBA, like he was effectively their point guard. He was the guy with the ball in his hands making the decisions for them. He just plays with like a ton of heart, a ton of toughness. He loves contact. He invites contact. Actually, one of the only players in this draft I've actually seen play in person. Just time and time again, whether his team is up by 20 or down by 20, he's just diving into the rim. He's trying to shoulder guys out of the way. He's just like fighting and scrapping and clawing for like any advantage. He's just a super 110% effort guy on defense. Great athlete, I should mention. I think in the game I watched, he caught a couple of lobs. I just think the physical tools are 100% there. And like the effort and the toughness and the grittiness are there. And I just think, there's just enough, like, he's definitely not a guy you're going to want running the show in the NBA. Like, he's not a good enough playmaker for that. I don't know if he's a guy who's super awesome at, like, finishing around the rim, but, like, has a totally reasonable jump shot. Very, I would say, like, very above average athlete. Really strong physical body, broad shoulders. Like, I don't know, all the things that you would want in your Miami Heat 7th man role player type guy.
So why do you think that we haven't seen him as much in the first round?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I think part of it is he was 100% playing out of position at California. Like, he's a point guard, or he was playing as a point guard, and he kind of struggles with the point guard type stuff. Like, he turned the ball over a lot. He's not really the greatest playmaker. I think if he was playing as a wing in a team that made sense, and like had playmaking around him and was like allowed to just like use his athleticism more to kind of just like make plays and do stuff off the ball, maybe he would be highly regarded. He's also older, like he's a junior. I think he's going to be 22 draft age. So that's another thing that's going to hurt him. Yeah, he's 21 now, so he'll be 22 next year. His wingspan is good, 6'5" with 6'8" wingspan, but it's not like huge, like he's not like an oversized wing or anything. Yeah, this is the shoot. I mean, just thinking of Miami players, this is like the Caleb Martin, version 2. So
yeah, I mean, 6'6" guy with a 6'8" wingspan, 220 pounds. Sounds good to me. I'm sold.
Yeah, he's really tough. He's really strong. He competes really hard. He's okay enough playmaker, okay enough shooter. I think he's gonna find a role in the NBA, and especially on this team. So,
I mean, clearly, like by the numbers, like monster physical standout things in terms of like the rebound rate and the free throw drawing, and then nothing has shot the ball well enough from three. Like the turnovers are the only thing that really jump off the page.
And again, I need to emphasize, he's playing on a really bad team. So
yeah.
The turnovers are going to be there because he's trying to force things to happen.
Yeah, he's unlikely to be playing in any kind of like on-ball role in the NBA. So
yeah,
that sounds good. Anyone else that anyone else you want to talk about that we didn't draft here today that is like, you might have drafted in one of these spots? Maybe we want to talk about what we didn't have Rob Dillingham higher.
Well, yeah, Rob Dillingham was top 5 not only for ESPN for like almost every mock draft, which is something that continues to confound me. And I think I've seen a lot of takes on Rob Dillingham where they're like, okay, he's really small. He's going to be the smallest player in the NBA when he's drafted. Like he's smaller than guys like Bones Highland, like he's tiny. And I've seen a lot of people say like, okay, maybe he's not going to be the star level upside guy, but his floor is like, he's the best 6 man in the NBA. And I'm like, I think the floor is actually a lot lower than that. Like you can't talk about this guy as a high floor guy. He's a guy who's really struggled to not be a black hole on offense. He's completely abysmal defensively. Like a lot of these microwave scorer, small guards, 6-man types are bad on defense. He's like another level of bad. Yeah, I mean, I totally understand he's very dynamic with the ball in his hands and he makes all these crazy shots, but there's a world in which he's just not an NBA level player.
He's another guy with weird feet on his jump shot too. Like I'm not sure I trust the jump shot there.
Maybe that's a Kentucky thing.
Yeah, I think especially with tiny scorers, when people talk about the high floor, it's like, well, it's whatever the floor is that you think it is, just adjust it for the first injury, because a lot of these, when you're that small, you're just one little step lost from being completely out of the NBA. So that like, it's just a long history of guys going from like at their peak athleticism, they can get by defenders and get shots off, and that's like a valuable skill, like whether it's a 6-man or however much you can scale it up. But then the moment that the health is not entirely there is just no way you can contribute at all. Like it just like,
yeah.
Like Isaiah Thomas goes from all NBA to and not that he's as small as Isaiah Thomas, but like he's also a different kind of player.
Well, Isaiah Thomas was a lot heavier than Rob Dillingham. Like he had a lot more muscle, even if he wasn't as tall.
Yeah, exactly. That's why he seems like a guy that can't. I mean, I think of what's his name, who's small shooter, was on the Spurs most recently. I think was in New Orleans before that. Why am I forgetting his name right now?
Devontae Graham.
Yeah. I get Devontae Graham vibes in that, where it's like you're probably most likely to end up being like a shooting specialist that's sort of hard to slot in with lineups, but on the right kind of team, you're like a starter for a year or whatever. That's like, this guy's like 170 pounds, and I don't see him becoming any bigger than that. I don't see his body changing. He's like, Yeah, I'm not like I think we both feel the same way about him. I'm shocked to see it that high because it's not even like I see him doing things that we don't see like 3 or 4 college guards doing every year. That's what I'm a little bit confused about. Like why him? Why now? What is he is like electric. I love watching the highlights. Like he's an
Yeah,
incredible basketball player. Like
he's an
so
electric enough
slithery, so
athlete where
poppy.
like a lottery projection makes some sense to me. I have him at 18 to the Magic just because he is a really good athlete. And he
Mhm.
can make shots. You know, he takes high degree of difficulty shots, but he also makes them. You know, so I get it. But I guess the top five thing is just confusing to me because there's not a ton of guys in this draft class where they're like, oh yeah, obvious future All Star. But there are guys where like if things pan out right, they're going to be really good NBA players, and there's
Yeah.
just no world in which that is the case for Rob Dillingham. So I don't know why we're taking him over guys where it's like, given the right development path, these guys are going to be awesome.
Yeah. I had him at 14 on my big board. I'm not wildly low on him. I just like he didn't come up in this mock draft just as we were going through like team by team, but I have him still as like a borderline lottery guy. Just yeah, I think it's people are over being a little bit generous in their imagination of like well, I think what he's going to be able to do long term in the NBA. The guy that I like might have drafted a little bit earlier too, but didn't get to was Kyle Filipowski. I think he's
Okay.
like I just like his I like his on ball defense. I think that's the thing that gets under discussed when with him as like a prospect as like a I just see him as like he could be like Kelly Olynyk except he doesn't get blown by on the perimeter. Like you could play him next to another big. He's
I,
like I think his defensive feet are actually like amazing. I don't think he can be like a rim protecting center, but I think he can like guard the perimeter really well.
I'll have to watch more Kyle Filipowski tape. Like, I'm not in love with his offensive game, I guess, and
Yeah, like, can he actually shoot is a good
yeah,
question because like if he's not going to be like a stretch center on offense, it becomes less clear like what he is going to be.
I guess running through some of these later picks, some guys who had hype. Isaiah Collier, oh man, I get it. He's talented and he can get to the rim. He was shorter than I expected, and the jump shot is just so far away. I have him mocked 21 to the Pelicans. There's a world in which he's an okay NBA offensive player, but like a lot of things would need to go right for that to happen in a big way. I have Tyler Smith to the Cavs. I think
Oh yeah,
him next to Mobley, assuming some kind of like trade happens to get Allen out of there. I really like that front court fit a lot. Tyler Smith is a really good spot up shooter. I don't know. I just like that fit, I guess.
I like Collier. Just before moving on from Collier, I do think that he's a good defensive prospect.
Okay.
Like I do that. Like I think like he's just like really strong and really high motor on defense. I'm not sure what his offensive game is going to be in the NBA, and it's crazy that we used to talk about this guy as like the #1 pick or something like that because I don't like you say he's not that big and he doesn't have an obvious like NBA level scoring tool, but he's definitely still like a standout, like strong, quick, um, like you just bullyish kind of player that I think he's the kind of player that if he can find his role defensively in the NBA, he might get a chance to like figure out his role offensively. I love the Tyler Smith pick too, by the way.
To Jane Salwan, I had him 19 to the Raptors. Just an upside guy. Super raw. Unclear if he's ever going to, I don't know, know how to play basketball, I guess. But if you catch him on the right night or in the right string of possessions, he can look really good. He's clearly talented and a good athlete. It's just,
Like
does he know how to play basketball? I don't know.
if you really wanted to draft Rizachet, but someone beat you to it.
Yeah.
And
Well, Rizzo is looks way more comfortable with the ball in his hands than this guy does. So
yeah, I'm not really sure about like that league being very good either, which makes me worry a little bit about some of these guys. I think like whenever you just assume every Euro league is created equal, and that's not
no,
always the case.
yeah.
I've heard a couple people who know more about international basketball than I do be like, that is not a high level of competition.
Eves Missy, I have him going to the Suns. Suns need a 5. He's the best 5 in the late first round that you can get. I don't know. It's not rocket science.
Mm-hmm.
Bucks, I actually have the veteran guy I'm betting on to be just like super solid role player guy is Harrison Ingram. I think he's super solid on defense. Sneaky, very good playmaker. 3-point shot improved.
2 years after he was like almost a first round pick.
Yeah. He's gotten so much better in college though. Like he was super raw coming in as a rookie, and he's turned into a really high level college player. One of the better defenders in the NCAA last year. Yeah, I mean, I think he can be the guy who, what's his face? The guy that they drafted a couple years ago was supposed to be
The who drafted a couple years ago?
the Bucks.
Andre Jackson or Marshawn?
Yeah,
Beauchamp?
he can be the Marjan Beauchamp, but like ready to play right away instead of needing some time in the oven.
I've cooled a little bit on my former draft darling, Izan Almanza.
Okay.
But I still sort of have him as like a late first round pick.
Okay.
The more I sort of watched him, the more I found little like holes in his game in terms of even just kind of like physically, he wasn't quite the prospect that I was like originally seeing him as, but I still see like a super high IQ player with a big enough body that I think he can be at this point. I'm literally just naming people I think who might still be in the NBA in 5 years. And just like super high IQ, able to operate as both like a hub and a finisher. A guy, if you throw it out there with a point guard, he'd just be like, he's not going to bobble a single pass on a pick and roll. He's going to finish strong. I used to just assume that he was a versatile defender, but I've been watching the defensive footage with the G League Ignite, and I'm like a little bit less than impressed. He's like not quite like imposing enough to be a rim protector and not actually that versatile, like switching. So he's a bit of a tweener defensively, which is why I would have had him I might have had him in the lottery otherwise, but I still like him highly as an offensive player.
My guy in that mold is Iguodaro. I have him mocked to the Celtics at 30. I just super high IQ player. Just knows exactly.
I think there's a chance he goes higher than that. Like, because I've seen his name come up quite a few times where just people. I mean, just like I don't know, bigs who can pass are a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Then my draft darling from a couple years ago, Trayvon Brazil. I have him going to the Nuggets at 28.
Nice.
The physical measurements just are off the charts. Like, he has this 7'4" wingspan. He has some of the most massive hands in the entire draft. He's pretty mobile. Yeah. And he can be like a small ball 5 that's not even small, and he's okay 3-point shooter too. I just think out of the box, ready to play right away. Nuggets need a backup.
I had him
5.
First round last year, but I haven't checked into to get an update. So I guess he's still in my first round for this year, but my information is not up to date.
He really stood out with the combine measurements. It's like, oh yeah, this guy has all the physical tools.
Didn't he go to the combine last year though? Like wasn't it like?
Yeah, I don't know why he went back to college. Out? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I remember that being one of the late disappearances that were sort of surprising, but and it doesn't seem like he's improved. I don't see him going. Like I don't hear him having any more hype, but I guess we'll see. You want to wrap it up there? Any other last?
I'll just end with the guy I had go to the Wolves. T.J. Shannon to the Knicks, Deron Holmes to the Knicks, Bub Carrington to the Wizards. And then for the Wolves, my guy, Ryan Dunn.
Oh, I've got Ryan Dunn in the first round as well.
Yeah.
I would love if he landed at 30 for the Wolves. That'd be great.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, that's all for our mock draft plus the rest of it. Very quick wrap up at the end.
All right, thanks everyone.
Yeah, we'll catch you next time. We'll probably talk about the draft again as it's really coming around into full swing after the playoffs. But until then, we'll be back with more playoffs after we get through the conference finals and into the finals. So talk to you then.